Here are 6 fun party tips. And the first 3 are mine from my experience working as an event entertainer. And the last 3 are Nora Ephron's, and she was the goddess of throwing parties. The first tip is if you want people to dance at your party and you want a higher level of energy, then don't have very much seating. Like, have some chairs, but definitely don't have enough chairs for everybody. In fact, I say have very few chairs. Because the more chairs there are, the more that people will sit down. And when they sit down, then the energy of the party sits down, and it's really hard to go from seated to dancing. The second tip may seem obvious, but I still see people get this wrong a lot, and that is lighting. Use lower lighting. Don't have super bright lights anywhere in your party. I see it so often, and people don't feel good under bright lights, and then they're at your party feeling self-conscious because there's like a ton of bright light on their face. So I recommend the color changing light bulbs. Those are fantastic, and then you can play with the colors. The next tip is my personal opinion, and that is that I don't think you need that much food at your party. And unless you're doing a dinner party or a barbecue, you don't need that much food. I see a lot of people will prepare a ton of food, and I just think about the amount of time and effort that they put into it. And it doesn't really change the party that much. And then food is complicated because it changes the way your breath smells. You might get stuff in your teeth. You're trying to talk and eat and drink at the same time. So I recommend if you do want to have food at your party, maybe even save it till later in the party. And definitely don't feel pressure to have food. You don't really need it. So Nora Ephron's tips, I wish I could find this interview that I listened to. I would link it if I could find it, but it was like 10 years ago that I heard this. But these were such great tips, and these are for a dinner party. So her first tip for a dinner party is when guests first arrive, have barely any appetizers. And not for the reason that I just said, but because she says you want to keep them hungry. So don't have food at the beginning and liquor them up. Now, I'm not saying you have to have alcohol at your party, but she was suggesting to not feed people and to have people drink so that by the time they sit down to dinner, which she said you should make them wait like 2 hours, by the time they sit down to dinner, they're hungry and they're pretty, they're a little tipsy, maybe more than a little. So the second tip is to have round tables. So I think that's good as long as they're not too big, but she says round tables are just so much better for a dinner party. And then the third tip, and I think this is so great, is to have food that is difficult to eat. So if it's too easy to eat, people will just inhale it. But if you give them something with a shell or something they have to work on,